Hey guys, how's it going? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we're looking at the new Rhinox from Beast Wars in the Transformers Generations line. He is a Voyager class this time. He was originally a deluxe when we very first got him a long time ago, and if you guys know Rhinox, you know he's not supposed to be a deluxe size figure. He should have been a Voyager all along. So thankfully he finally is. Thankfully we finally get one that's not horrible. However, this one is not quite as good of a representation of the character as was Waspinator, or even Dinobot, or Cheetor. Well, it's about the same as Cheetor, to be completely honest. It's good, it's better than the original, but not quite where it should be. Either way, let's take a look at the figure. He stands about 6.5 inches tall to the very tippity top of his head, and as you can see, it just is a pretty good representation of Rhinox. Once we break it down a little bit more, it's not quite right, but it's probably pretty good enough. The mouth should definitely be bigger, much wider. Of course, they couldn't really do that to get it into a proper beast mode, so it's okay. They tried to hide it a little bit with some shaping of the chest. It's just not quite right. And then the head, while it's much better than past iterations, it's still not quite right. And I'm pretty sure those Maximal logos up there should have been farther on the side, but I don't remember 100%, so I could be wrong about that. No biggie. The sculpt's not quite there, but it's definitely close enough to where I'm okay with it. I am going to be a bit harsh, though, just because I'm a big Rhinox fan. The shoulders aren't quite right. The general look of him, it's close. The whole thing is just kind of close enough. He does finally have the guns, which they're not perfect and they're not painted at all, but they are pretty close. So I'm okay with that, and they do spin when you do that, so that's okay. He holds them just fine. I think one of the problems I have is just it doesn't have the greatest build. It's not the best transformation I've seen. It's okay. It's just not great. Out of the package, fresh out of the package, the legs come all the way down like that, so he's a lot taller and skinnier. And maybe that's what the instructions say. I haven't looked, but he's back heavy like crazy then. Let's move that. And he's got that big gap back there. So what I would suggest, plus Rhinox isn't tall and slender. He's supposed to be kind of thick. You can bring that piece, this crotch piece, that comes down like that. I don't know if you could see before. So that comes like that, but I would spin it all the way back there to fill that gap, just in case the instructions don't tell you. I don't know, I haven't checked. And that gives him better proportions and better balance. So that is definitely something to do. So as far as the robot mode goes, we do have pretty nice composition in terms of molded plastics and paints. It looks okay. It's just not great. The head articulation is pretty good, though. He can look up, can't look down, obviously, because his chin hits. But he does have side to side. You just have to pick his head up a little bit. So that's a kind of a disappointment because it's getting blocked by those two pieces on either side. So, I don't know. It does rock side to side a little bit, though, so you can give him a little bit of expression. So that's okay. No light piping on this guy, I should point out. It's painted. His eyes are painted, which is a little bit unusual, but that's okay by me. The shoulders have that joint there and a swivel there. And that's it for the shoulders. You do have a bicep swivel and a single jointed bicep, which gets you almost 90 degrees, but not quite. And then the wrists, you don't get much out of them at all. There's no real articulation there either way. So that's it. Pretty limited. No waist twist. However, if you bring it down, you can turn it. So if you bring that back piece down a little bit, you can turn it, but I really wouldn't suggest it because he'll be very difficult to stand. For the hips, you can see the joint there. It's a pin joint, a pivot right there, and then they do come forward on a swivel. There's a thigh swivel built in, perfectly well hidden. That's nice. He does get a good bend out of his knee, but and then the armor overlaps, but it's really blocky looking. So, I mean, his legs are already pretty Clayface looking. If you're a Batman fan, you know who Clayface is. That looks pretty horrible. That's what Clayface looks like. So I really don't like the way they did the legs for Rhinox. They don't look good and they don't function that well. Plus, bringing the leg up like that will make it hard for him to stand because the ankles have no articulation at all. All you have is this toe joint, which even when it's flat, isn't flat. You see that gap? So that makes balancing an issue. And then, of course, it goes down, which you would never need, and it does go up. But it's still going to be really hard to get into balance on that. So the robot mode, it looks good enough, I should say, and it's made well enough that it'll do. It's definitely an upgrade on the old one, so if you're a Beast Wars fan, must have, but don't expect to be playing with him or posing him a lot. He's going to be in a lot of static poses. So, I mean, it's good, but it's not that good. But since it's Rhinox and it's Beast Wars and it's a heck of a lot better than before, I'm going to recommend it 100% either way. So there's the robot mode. Let me get him transformed and we'll talk about beast mode real quick. Okay, so I've got Rhinox transformed, and I have to say it's okay, but it's just not great. One thing I forgot to mention though, and I realized it as I was putting him into beast mode, is that his ankles do have an ankle rocker. So when his robot feet are out, which would be like that, you can give him a bit of an ankle rocker, but you can't use it too much anyway, so no big deal. But in the beast mode, it's just okay. Mine apparently was slightly defective. Both legs should peg all the way forward like this, and mine, the notch where it's supposed to go just doesn't go. So this leg sticks out back and you can see that gap, so that's kind of irritating. The panels do fit together pretty well for the most part. This butt piece is soft material, I guess, for the tail, so it doesn't fit together very well. And the head, at least as far as I could tell, doesn't really peg into place anywhere. So that's kind of irritating, and I guess maybe that's supposed to be for articulation purposes, but I don't know. Maybe that part does peg in, but it just doesn't stay well, so it's kind of frustrating. And then when you open the mouth, his head's right there, so it's just not nearly as good as Waspinator was. I was really hoping Rhinox would be nice like that, but he's passable again, just like in robot mode. He's not great, but he's definitely passable and definitely better. See, nothing ever wants to stay in place. And he's definitely better than the first one, so don't expect any articulation really. It's pretty much static, so that's about it. You're not going to leave it in beast mode anyway, so don't worry about it. But again, with robot mode and beast mode, they're both just good enough to be a good Rhinox. They're not going to blow you away, and they're definitely not as good as Waspinator. So it's good, and I do recommend it just because it's Rhinox and it's way better, but I'm repeating myself now, but it's not great. So I'll just end the review there, do a quick measurement just so you have an idea. In beast mode, he is just about 7 inches from head to tail. So again, I do recommend it. So go get one if you can, but don't be too excited. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.